With Donald Trump advancing in Arizona polls,
Hillary Clinton's corruption is corrosive to the soul of our nation.
And Democrats reeling from the FBI's investigation of new emails belonging to a top Clinton aide.
If Donald Trump were to win this election, we would have a commander-in-chief who is completely out of his depth and whose ideas are incredibly dangerous.
The final week of campaigning packs a punch in this battleground state.
The history of Mrs. Clinton for 35 plus years has been involving herself right on the edge of scandal.
He needs to be president because he can do the job, and he can't.
That plus the work of young Latinos and Native Americans to bring change on November 8th. This is Arizona Week. Hello and thanks for joining us. In one final push, they arrived en masse this week to present their final arguments to the people of Arizona. In the span of 6 days, both presidential candidates and both their running mates intensified their campaigns here. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton each holding large rallies in Phoenix, Mike Pence in Mesa, and Tim Kaine in Tucson. The political surge in Arizona coming immediately after the surprise announcement, the FBI is now investigating hundreds of thousands of emails the agency says appear to be pertinent to its earlier completed investigation of Hillary Clinton's personal email server. Widely reported, the new emails belong to one of Mrs. Clinton's closest aides, Huma Abedin, and they were found on a laptop seized by the FBI that belonged to Abedin's estranged husband, Anthony Weiner, who is under investigation in an unrelated case. According to the FBI director's letter to Congress, agents are trying to determine whether the new emails contain classified information, and they cannot yet assess whether or not this material, the emails, may be significant. One key question now, has news of the FBI probe hurt Mrs. Clinton, or has it changed the contest in Arizona? Donald Trump now leads Hillary Clinton in Arizona in a poll average by Real Clear Politics, and the political website 538 has estimated the percentage chance of each candidate winning in our state. As of Friday morning, 538 gave Mr. Trump a 69.2% chance of winning Arizona's 11 electoral votes and Mrs. Clinton a 30.8% chance, a reversal of their positions in this forecast only 2 weeks ago. In Tempe, where Hillary Clinton appeared before a crowd of 15,000, she didn't mention the FBI probe, but at a Phoenix rally, Donald Trump couldn't wait to talk about it.
The FBI is reopening their investigation into the criminal conduct and the illegal conduct of Hillary Clinton. This is the biggest political scandal since Watergate, and it's everybody's deepest hope that justice, at last, will be beautifully delivered.
I mean, we finally found out in the debate that Trump hasn't paid income tax for 20 years because he claims to have lost $1 billion. We need to end the gimmicks that allow somebody to fly around in a private plane and a helicopter and live in a penthouse and not pay a penny of federal taxes. Every one of us pays a lot more than he does.
Hillary Clinton's corruption is corrosive to the soul of our nation, and it must be stopped. It must be stopped.
Now, if you care about immigration reform, I will fight to pass comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship, to keep families together, to keep our economy together.
A Trump administration will secure and defend the borders of the United States, and yes, we will build a wall. We will end illegal immigration, deport every last criminal alien, and save American lives, and we'll do it quickly.
Imagine having a president who demeans women, mocks the disabled, insults Latinos, African Americans, Muslims, POWs, who pits people against each other instead of pulling us together.
Hillary has been there for 30 years, and she's accomplished nothing just made things worse.
And as your Secretary of State, I traveled to 112 countries, negotiated ceasefires, reduced the threat of nuclear weapons, stood up for human rights, women's rights, LGBT rights around the world.
I will never, ever let you down. And we will make America great again. God bless you, everybody. Get out and vote. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you, Arizona.
I want you to be able to say, I voted for a better, stronger, fairer America, where we prove that love trumps hate. Let's go to work. Thank you all. God bless you, Arizona.
And joining me now is Bill Beard from the Pima County Republican Party, a supporter of Donald Trump, and Ron Barber, a former Democratic congressman, a supporter of Mrs. Clinton. My thanks to both of you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start off with you, Ron. This email conversation that we're hearing about from the FBI, this close to the election, does that help or hurt Mrs. Clinton?
I think it's inappropriate, first of all. I think the protocols within the Department of Justice say you don't get out and interfere with an election in any way 60 days out. So surprised and unhappy with what the FBI director did. I think anything that comes out in the last few days has impact, just as the Access Hollywood tape had an impact on Mr. Trump's campaign, and he took a nosedive in the polls. And certainly there's been some impact, but not a lot in the polls for Secretary Clinton.
Bill, this close to the election, and Mr. Trump is saying that this is similar to Watergate. What does this do for undecided voters? Does it really sway them?
Well, I think if you're an undecided voter out there, you're probably in rare company these days. But the reality is that when you've got someone that is looking to be the chief law enforcement officer of this country as president, you need to take a long, hard look at whether or not that individual is capable of carrying out laws, making sure that the administrative side of the presidency is handled with above reproach. The history of Mrs. Clinton for 35 plus years has been involving herself right on the edge of scandal, right on the edge of felonies, if you will. And I think this time it is caught up with her. Whether you like it or not, the reality is she's the one that caused this. She's the one that made the decision how many ever years ago now to put a server in her own home and handle classified information over that private server instead of carrying on as most government officials do through the normal channels for their emails. Whether she did it purposely to hide something or it was a mistake on her part just to be more comfortable with where the information was gathered, the reality is she put the security of this country at stake by putting that on her own homebrew server. The information that's come out in the last few days about, I believe yesterday, multiple sources in the FBI were saying at least 5 separate times they have determined that her server was breached by foreign entities. I'm sorry, Mrs. Clinton, you have put the security of this entire nation in a very precarious position, and that is not something I think an undecided voter should say, okay, I'll vote for Hillary and just take my chances.
Ron, 2 weeks ago, what Bill just discussed didn't seem to be a factor in Arizona. The polls show that she had the higher percentage of winning Arizona. Right. And here we are 2 weeks later, though, and those numbers are shifting again. Right. What do you account for that?
Well, I think if you look at Arizona's election history, or in mine and Gabby's, for example, you know, you can be up 10 points out, as I was in 2014, and then people start coming home to their party of choice, and obviously I lost that election by 167 votes. So it's not unexpected that the numbers are closing. But I want to take issue with what Bill said. It's the same old, same old. You know, repeating speculation, implying and impugning Secretary Clinton's integrity. It's the same old Trump, Trump, Trump explanation of why he should be president. He needs to be president because he can do the job, and he can't. Secretary Clinton is the most qualified person we've ever had running for the presidency, and that's why I think she's going to be elected on Tuesday.
Let's move on to health care. This week, we hear that Arizona premiums have gone up 116%, in Phoenix, 145%. Bill, health care is an important issue to anyone, but let alone in Arizona where the numbers are so high.
Things like health care are going to drive people that maybe were undecided previously. They get that notice from their insurance company, and they've been receiving that in the last week or two, that says 140% up in Phoenix, statewide 100%. Just in Arizona, those same numbers you're seeing across the country. And I don't care which side of the political spectrum you come down on, if you have a candidate that is saying we're going to increase the Obamacare Affordable Care Act, if you will, and the provisions of it, or a candidate that says no, enough's enough, stop the skyrocketing price increases, you're going to have folks come down on the side of the guy that says he's going to stop it. Hillary is just a rubber stamp for continuing the 8 years of the Obama administration and making sure that the health care problems that the average voter out there experiences on a daily basis are only going to get worse. It's going to come down to motivating those undecided, and I think Donald Trump's going to win that one.
Ron, Donald Trump right now is saying the Affordable Care Act is not really affordable. What's your
Right.
response to that?
Well, I think it's an overstatement, first of all. When I was in Congress, I worked across the aisle with a number of Democrats and Republicans who wanted to make changes in the Affordable Care Act. Any bill of that magnitude, going back to Social Security, Medicare, and all the rest, have been subjected, as they needed to be, to revisions because you can't always get it all right the first time. And this price increase for some members who are enrolled with the Affordable Care Act is a serious problem. Don't have any doubt about that. But what we have to do is go in and fix the problem. And let's not forget, who are raising the prices? The insurance companies. They need to be brought under control in terms of the ever-increasing profiteering that they're going through, including the Affordable Care Act. And I believe that if the president is Clinton and the Congress is willing to cooperate with her, we can make the changes in the Affordable Care Act that are necessary and have been for quite some time. It's a good thing. 20 million new Americans were able to get insurance.
Let's move on to closing statements, if you will.
Sure. Okay.
Each of you is supporting a candidate who says the other candidate is unfit for this office. Let's start off with you, Bill. How do you stress to Arizona voters that Donald Trump is the presidential candidate that should be voted in on Tuesday?
Donald Trump has many decades history of being a successful businessman. You can argue little details about something he may have said over the years, but he has a proven track record of when he says he's going to get something done, he gets it done. What has Mrs. Clinton done in the last how many ever decades? It always comes down to she says one thing in public, but as her private emails have revealed, she actually wants to do something complete opposite of what she says. She can't be trusted to carry through on the things she says she wants to do. Donald Trump has a proven record of carrying through on what he says he's going to do. He's going to make sure that America is restored to its greatness and make all of us better.
Ron?
Well, there's never been a more qualified candidate for president than Secretary Clinton. She has served 2 terms in the Senate, 4 years as Secretary of State, First Lady in Arkansas, First Lady of the United States. In that capacity as First Lady, she actually was able to get the Congress, a Republican Congress, to agree to set up a children's health care program, and 9 million children are getting health care because of the work she did. As a Secretary of State, she negotiated ceasefires. She is someone who has set us on a path to making sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. In terms of domestic policy, she has an economic plan that will actually increase jobs in America. And in terms of climate change, she doesn't deny it like Mr. Trump. She believes we need to deal with it. In terms of respecting everybody, clearly she's the better candidate.
My thanks to both of you for your analysis. More than 1.5 million people have voted early in Arizona, a sign of the excitement surrounding this election. Both parties are trying hard to win the state, sending their vice presidential candidates to our state for 2 last rallies. Joining me now is Christopher Conover to talk about the message delivered by Mike Pence and Tim Kaine. And Christopher, to start off, they're talking about things that affect all of us.
They really are. This is the last push, so it is time to get that final message. message out. The two candidates spent most of their speeches on familiar talking points. When it came to the economy, the two men both took the opportunity to deride the other side's economic plan.
Hillary Clinton's plan? More of the same. Not the same, more of the same. More taxes, more regulation, more of the same failed policies that have increased the cost of American energy, and more Obamacare.
The economists who look at the Trump plan say, okay, the Hillary plan would grow the economy by 10.5 million jobs. The Donald Trump plan would shrink the economy by 3.5 million jobs.
This election is one that will be remembered by history, a fact not lost on the two vice presidential candidates.
You don't get this chance in every election. You don't get the chance to make history in an election that you can tell your kids and your grandkids you were part of. And nobody expected 6 months ago that Arizona would be right at the middle of this.
We've come to another time for choosing in America, and it's a dramatic choice. I can't imagine in my lifetime that I have ever or will ever be a part of a more important election in the life of this nation.
The Latino vote in Arizona could be a tipping point. Tim Kaine sprinkled Spanish through his Tucson speech, especially when talking about comprehensive immigration reform. He delivered the whole speech in Phoenix in Spanish. Mike Pence barely touched on immigration in his Arizona speeches.
We're going to make sure that community education centers are free. We are going to ensure that attending state university does not entail taking out a loan. And for families who earn less than $125,000 a year, we will do away with tuition completely.
And Christopher, a first of its kind on the presidential campaign for a candidate to speak in Spanish. I mean, that's unique.
It really is. This is the first time that a major party candidate has conducted an entire speech in Spanish. Arizona has a Latino population in the 30% range, and that's kind of the sleeping giant this year. Will Latinos turn out to vote? So this is an attempt by the Democrats to really get out and try and pull that vote in.
Now, it's not fair to assume that all Hispanics speak Spanish and would want to attend a speech like this, but does it speak to the versatility of a campaign?
It certainly does, again, because it is the first time we've ever seen it. We know, for example, Jeb Bush speaks Spanish, but he never held an entire rally in Spanish. This is the first time a major party vice presidential or presidential candidate has done this.
And we have just a few days to go, so it proves that there is a final push.
There is a final push, just a few days to go.
Okay, thank you. A full court press to get Arizona millennials, Latinos, and Native Americans to the polls. The numbers show millennials now have surpassed baby boomers as the largest living generation in the U.S., and Latino and Native American millennials are rapidly growing in numbers. If they show up in large numbers to vote, they could sway Arizona's presidential results. Here's Arizona Public Media's Nancy Montoya on the efforts by Democrats and Republicans to secure the state's minority millennials.
One of our founding fathers, born in 1757. This is Alexander Hamilton. And this is also Alexander Hamilton. Lin-Manuel Miranda, a Puerto Rican American, plays the historic figure in the rap hip-hop Broadway mega hit, Hamilton. Like the real Hamilton, Miranda calls himself a patriot. He is also a Latino millennial and has a message for his Latino peers. Don't throw away your shot.
I am not throwing away my shot! There's nothing Americans love more than posting online who you should vote for.
Miranda says the cast of Hamilton teamed up with Movimiento Hispano, a consortium of 40 national Latino organizations, to get out the young Latino vote. Here in Tucson, Mi Familia Vota, the My Family Votes organization, is listening to the national call.
We all remember why we're out there, right? We're trying to get as many millennial voters as we can out there.
Every day for months, teams of young Latinos have been meeting, getting their assignments, and then heading out into the community.
The cool thing is that right here you can see the map and you can have a picture.
On this day, Vanessa Martinez and Frank Ojeda will visit up to 100 homes.
Hello. We're looking for a Sarah for voting.
That's me.
Yeah. Hello, Sarah. It's just a quick question about the upcoming election November 8th. How are you today?
Mi Familia Vota is a nonpartisan group. The ground game is to get out Arizona's Latino vote. And because more Hispanics are registered to the Democratic Party in Arizona, the efforts of Mi Familia Vota is favoring Hillary Clinton. The latest tracking polls for Latino Decisions, a national group out of Washington, D.C., found that in the Latino community, the Democratic Party is winning the push-pull game. The group predicts a landslide for Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. What is motivating especially young Latinos this year? Donald Trump.
We're here and we're not here to cause damage or do wrong, you know.
All dressed up for her daughter's Halloween party earlier this week, Adriana Morales says she was once a passive voter, but she now feels passionate about voting, not so much for Clinton, but against Trump.
Now it's made me go completely out, you know, with my claws and all, with, you know, with this.
You're dressed for it.
Right? I think so. I think I might just dress November 8th for this, too.
She's joking. Not really. And neither are the more than 12 million U.S. Latino millennials who are eligible to vote. This week, the national tracking poll from Latino Decisions indicated a historic turnout of young Latino voters. And both parties, locally and nationally, are out to woo.
I want you to want me.
While millions have been spent on outreach to millennial Latinos, especially in urban areas, in the more remote areas, such as on the Tohono O'odham Nation, very little attention has been paid to the Native American youth vote. While nationally, Native Americans are around 1.7% of the U.S. population, they do wield enormous cultural power that impacts voting trends of non-natives.
They came to your house.
What class do you have right now, anyway?
I have Avid.
On the Baba Kivari School in Cells, 18-year-old friends Warren Mateas and Joaquin Martinez are both members of the Tohono O'odham Nation. They have registered to vote for the first time, but unlike Latino millennials, their level of enthusiasm is just barely registering.
Are you planning on voting?
Truthfully, I wasn't, just because the candidates suck so bad. No, I don't see, none of them appeal, none of the two appeal to me as much, just because they both seem, I guess it's like choosing the best out of the two evils.
Voting is getting harder for young people in the nation. Voting polls are far away, and 1 in 4 don't have a car. Then there's Arizona state laws requiring a permanent address and picture ID. Many young people in the nation live with relatives or friends and have neither. And yet, despite the many barriers, Verlin Jose, the vice chair of the Tohono O'odham Nation, says it is estimated by tribal leaders that voter registration among millennials on the nation is up by 40% from 2012.
It is important to vote. And people say, oh, you know what, my vote doesn't count. It does count.
Whether Latino or Native American, the message to millennials is clear.
Vote, vote, America. Vote, vote, the time is now.
For Arizona Week, I'm Nancy Montoya.
As if we don't already have enough to worry about with the upcoming election, 2 asteroids were headed our way this past week, and astronomers say it was a close call for our planet. Both of the asteroids were spotted by telescopes right here in Arizona. To explain what happened, here's Eric Christensen, the director of the Catalina Sky Survey at the University of Arizona Lunar and Planetary Lab.
So we spotted it Halloween night from our telescope in the Santa Catalina Mountains on Mount Lemmon. Our observer, Al Grauer, was actually fighting clouds most of the night and was sort of opening and closing and looking for holes in the clouds and came across this object. It was a fairly fast-moving object, reasonably bright.
Out of the ordinary or not so much?
Well, according to the way it looks initially, it didn't look to be out of the ordinary, but once a few more observations were taken and the orbit was calculated, it became clear that this object was going to be passing close to the Earth about 16 hours later.
When you say relatively close, I think people are hearing asteroid and thinking of Earth, and is there a possibility of an impact?
Well, this one was definitely a distant near miss, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It came about a quarter of the distance from the Earth to the Moon, nearly 100,000 kilometers away. And this is a very small asteroid on the order of 10 or 15 meters or so, about the size of a bus.
Okay. And it moves very fast in comparison to others?
This one, when it was discovered at the telescope, it was moving about half the speed of the Moon, and it was already at a distance about 3 times away from the Moon. However, 16 hours later, when it was whizzing by the Earth, it had sped up by about a factor of 100. So it was really moving from the northern part of the sky down to the southern part of the sky in the course of a couple of hours.
What is it about it that you would characterize as unusual?
Well, 2016 VA was unusually close, and also the circumstances of the pass were a little bit unusual because it actually passed through the Earth's shadow. So it actually experienced an eclipse.
How is it that it remained undetectable for so long up until like Halloween night? How did we not know it was there?
Well, this particular asteroid, it was small, so it's only detectable when it's relatively close to the Earth. We found it when it was about 18th magnitude. We could have found it maybe a day or two before had we been looking in the right place. So they have to be quite close to be detected, and our telescopes have to be pointed in the right direction.
And there have been other notable asteroids over the last week. Why suddenly? Is something happening out there that we should know about?
Well, close asteroids have been passing by and even impacting the Earth for forever. And the fact that we're noticing it more now really speaks to our ability to detect them. We're getting much better at detecting asteroids, especially these small asteroids when they close by, partly driven by some new instrumentation upgrades that we've recently installed at our telescopes.
But we shouldn't be concerned?
Of this particular asteroid, no. And of asteroids in general, there's really no cause for alarm or concern. I think there's cause for sort of constant vigilance to continue to look for these asteroids. But asteroids that are large enough to cause damage or to cause impacts to sort of human civilization are extremely rare events.
On Tuesday, November 8th, voters will head to the polls. Arizona Public Media will have live television and radio coverage that day and election night. And on next week's program, an in-depth analysis of the 2016 election. That's our program. Thanks for watching.